Leung is an international and independent China strategist who joins us now from Hong Kong. Andrew Leung, thank you for your time. Just explain to me about how well known the Chinese national anthem is in Hong Kong. For example, would people of your generation, which would also be my generation, by the way, would they know it better than the younger ones?
Well, of course, in my generation, I've known the anthem for a long, long time. But like it or not, it's the national anthem of China. You know, so as in the case of the national anthem of France about marches, you know, or in China it's the March of Volunteers. But nevertheless, Beijing has inserted this into the laws of China. Also extended it by extension to the laws of Hong Kong, which is the Article Annex 3 of the Hong Kong's Basic Law. Now, the background to this is that in recent years, in recent decades, the sense of a national identity has seriously declined. Recent surveys show that quite a large number of young people, the majority, in fact, do not identify themselves as being of Chinese nationality anymore. They say, well, we are Hong Kong, we don't belong to China. So that's a very dangerous trend. Let's not forget that Hong Kong has been, as part of China, as under the Basic Law. Without the one country, there can be no two systems. So that's the background of the Basic Law. Now, as to whether or not this should be introduced into the primary schools and so on. Well, this is precisely the point, because the younger generation, a lot of them, even though they are taught China's history, but in fact, as they progress to university, you know, a lot of the students don't study China's history anymore. And then there is the sense of national identity has become weaker and weaker, and this has fed into a kind of sentiments that Hong Kong could become even independent. So again, that this crosses the red line. And after all, Hong Kong is part of the country, even though under two systems. So I think that these contradictions of the one country, two systems are coming to the fore, exemplified by this need to enact the national anthem law in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. So many points that you've made there, and you've repeated a couple of times that one country, two systems, the constitutional principle started by Deng Xiaoping back in the 1980s. Why are young people not understanding that over the course of hundreds of years, Hong Kong was part of China? It was only briefly part of the United Kingdom as a British territory. It is, after all, Chinese. Is there something in their political psyche that is making them want to oppose Beijing and be their own people?
Well, I lived through the two periods. In fact, most part of my life was before the handover under the British colonial administration. And it was only returned to the mainland in 1997. It was about, you know, just over 20 years. So a lot of the young people, they were very, very young, they were very, very small when Hong Kong was handed back to China. And then most of them, as I said, do not study history anymore as they go to secondary schools and even go to universities. I mean, they study law, they study accountancy, they study all the more practical subjects. And the sense of Hong Kong identity has become stronger, but a sense of a national identity has seriously weakened. And that feeds into a kind of contradictions. And people, a lot of young people, actually, they were anti-Beijing. And that's, for example, explain the umbrella movement, for example, earlier. A couple of years ago. So I think that this is also the reality that Hong Kong is really part of China. But how to make the two systems work in the context of the one country, and that's the challenge. But as China is getting more and more influential, and China becomes part of the global economy, for Hong Kong just to look at itself in a kind of narrow, kind of navel-gazing kind of mindset no longer works. But that's why it's important to teach the young people the sense of nationhood, for better or for worse. I mean, you can see that there are problems in China, but they've got to understand this. And then understand that their roots, I mean, they're Chinese. The blood runs through their veins, so they can't change that. And how to understand history is also very, very important.
Andrew Leung, we appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on TRT World.